Do you want to delve into the world of African mythology and learn more about the gods and what I'm saying right now? Well, there is one way, the Culture membership. It's on Patreon, and for only $5 a month, you get exclusive content, ad-free episodes, exclusive polls, fan requests, and a special newsletter, which I will be making in 2024. So, if you really want to delve into the world of African mythology, then I suggest the Culture membership. And also, as a special deal for listeners, I will give you a 7-day free trial. So a whole week of free for the membership. So, check out the Culture Show membership today. And welcome to the Season 2 premiere and Black History Month special of the Culture Show. The show where I talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. I'm AC3, your host. I'm a total mythology geek. I love all mythology, and I've been curious about African mythology. So I decided to learn more about it, and I will tell you what I've learned and how it relates to us today. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the history of where all the mythology we talk about on the show comes from, West Africa. So stay tuned. On Season 1 of the Culture Show podcast, I gave you a quick introduction to the Orishas. So, now we begin Season 2. And it's going to be a crazy season. So, a lot of changes are going to be made to the podcast. Like, I just dropped a new logo for it. But I'm also having my brothers, Alex, and my sister Rose, to be honest actors to play the actual characters in the mythology stories. And of course, I'm also going to have Eli as my editor. So it's going to be a lot of big changes to the show as well. I'm not going to go straight into the Homer mythology, but instead, today we're going to talk about the history of where all the mythology has come from. West Africa and the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Then the next few episodes, I'm going to share some more of the Orisha stories, and then we'll head into the Dahomey mythology. So, time for the first one of Season 2, Character Introductory. Character Introductory! The first character introductory of Season 2. So, let's start by naming some important historical figures. We're starting with the first ruler of the Mali Empire, Sundita. He founded the empire. And of course, Mansa Musa, the most wealthy person who ever lived in history. And Dingesise, who may or may not be real. I'll explain more on that later. And Diokosi, the first recorded king in history. And Sunni Ali, who gained Songhai's independence from Mali. So now, let's head into the history of West Africa. Africa is the second largest continent in the world. West Africa includes the area of terrain called the Western Sudan. It also includes the countries of Benin, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Equatorial Guinea, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and Togo. West Africa borders the Atlantic Ocean. South of the Western Sudan is the Guinea Coast Equatorial Forest. The climate varies from arid in the north to tropical in the south. The Sahara Desert is also part of West Africa. It is the largest desert in the world. Over West Africa is the Atlas Mountains. It is a boundary in northwestern Africa. Before we talk about the West African kingdoms, let's go back to the Stone Age. 2.6 billion years ago, people found out how to make things out of stone. In Africa, hand axes and flakes were some of the things made. In North Africa, the Middle Paleolithic saw people making pointed flakes and blades. After the Stone Age came the Iron Age. The earliest known iron artifacts were beads made in Egypt. Iron hoes and axes were created too. This made it possible to farm and create food for the people of Africa. As more and more food was produced, the trans-Saharan trade began. The trans-Saharan trade was a vital network between North and Sub-Saharan Africa. People trade for food, weapons, and many other goods. It covered 6,000 kilometers. Many traders went in there in search for gold and salt. Ghana had salt mines to supply to traders. One was the salt mine of Ideji. Salt was very valuable because of preservation of food and flavor enhancement. Salt was so highly valued, people gave gold dust for it. The religion of Islam further grew due to the trade of the Berbers and Africans having a common religion. The trade thrived for over 2,000 years. Many empires grew because of the trade of salt. These empires were Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Mali was first the small city of Kangba. Then, in 1235, a ruler named Sundita founded the great empire of Mali. He eventually controlled all of the trans-Saharan trade areas and built the city of Niamey. Berbers flocked to the city to exchange goods. After Sundita died, Mansa Musa took over. He conquered the cities of Timbuktu and Gao. He made many libraries and colleges in Timbuktu and made it an important Islamic city. He got so rich by trading and conquering, his net worth was a whopping $400 billion. He also made his famous trip to Mecca. He passed through Egypt and spent a lot of his gold, but also gave some to the poor. He even built a mosque in Egypt and Timbuktu. The Ghana's empire's origin is uncertain. What we do know is that it began as a regional kingdom of the Soninke people. The word Ghana means warrior. According to oral tradition, the empire emerged under a person named Dinges Sise. He is considered the ancestor of all Soninke people today. In 1076, the Arab traveler al-Bakri visited the empire and recorded the warfare, trades, and more. They captured Al-Ghost, which further grew the empire. Ghana also domesticated the camel. Songhai emerged in around the 800s CE. They lived in a region in Gao. The first king of the empire was Diakosi, the first king in recorded history. In 1010 CE, he converted the nation to Islam to aid the relations with traders. Gao was a rich city because it was on the Niger River that was used by many travelers in trading. It was so rich, Mali conquered it. As the Mali Empire grew weak, a king named Sunni Ali gained Songhai's independence. He also conquered most of the territory. Mali and Songhai had become richer and powerful than Mali ever was. They even took Timbuktu and continued to make it a center of learning. That is the history of West Africa, from the Stone Age to the powerful empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Mali had the wealthiest person who ever lived, Mansa Musa. Ghana's stories are told through oral tradition, and Songhai gained independence from Mali to become a powerhouse. The end. And that is the history of where all the mythology we talk about on the show comes from. West Africa. You have to record the history in parts because there was so much written down on the paper. So, how the story relates to us today? Well, Africa is more than what you see on the news. What you see on the news is people living in their houses, but really, we used to have a lot of money. $400 billion worth of it. But then European colonized us, so that changed there. But Africa is more than what you see. We used to have a lot of money. We used to be rich. So that's how the story relates to us today. Don't judge a book by its cover. Time for today's question of the day. Now, today's question is, what was the most interesting thing you learned about West Africa and its history today on today's episode? Well, for me, it was Mansa Musa having $400 billion. And that's just an estimation. Some people think it's $500 billion. Some people think $600 billion. Other people think it's $700 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. So that's what I found interesting. But what did you find interesting about today's episode? Well, let me know in voicemails and comments, and maybe your answer can be featured on the podcast. And that's the show. Thank you for listening to the Culture Show podcast. Sure, I talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. On the next episode, the Orishas revolt. Yep, it's gonna be a crazy new episode with Alex and Rose and Eli as our actors and Eli as our editor. And thank you guys for listening. Do you guys need something cool to wear? Well, I know where to look. On TeePublic, the Culture Show has merchandise. From shirts to hoodies to tank tops. Anything you need for the weather outside. I'll also be making a new limited edition shirt. Well, it's actually not limited. With my new logo on it. So you might want to check that out. So, if you guys need something cool to wear without breaking the bank, then make sure y'all check out the Culture Show merchandise.